once we get to the point where we've gotten through iterative development, people are using the product, it's awesome. Everybody likes reports. We're like, this is great. Data is being curated, new sources are being integrated. Then you realize, uh-oh, I am a one-man band, or I don't have the team makeup to do some of this analysis. I am unable to access this API because I can't write the code necessary for me to be able to create this connector, or whatever that looks like. I think it's important for people to understand from a user adoption standpoint, you can try to implement a lot of this stuff if you're a one-person shop, right? It's helpful to at least have somebody that's dedicated to it or focused on it, but really you'll want to have more than one person available, because if it becomes widely adopted, you're going to want to scale, and you're going to need to have multiple people that are available to help make sure that the product is working properly, updated, features and functionality that folks are asking for are being integrated. Oh, and on top of that, I remember when we started first using Power BI here 4 or 5 years ago, the ability to do certain things didn't exist in it. And as they've become iterative in their development cycles at Microsoft, where they're coming out with things every couple of weeks that are enhancing the product, there's so much to the product now and to the data universe that Microsoft has in the Power App systems that it's almost impossible for even external consultants to keep up with and continue to work with their clients on a day-to-day basis. So if you're inside your organization, I could imagine that it's going to be really hard to do that. So, one of the things I think it's important to talk about is what kind of teams we typically see in some of our more mature clients that are doing data analysis on a regular basis, and then also kind of what we're seeing where we're almost fully outsourced for those clients, and why you would want to work with a consulting company. So like, what do you see, Daniel, when you go into like some of the more fully formed organizations?
So when I go into the fully formed organizations, typically the buy-in is already there. We have quite a lot of roles that people are slotting into, and multiple people can be in one role, or multiple roles can apply to a single person, but it can't be done by just one person. So when we talk about, the roles inside of Power BI, we've got obviously stakeholders and what I bucket as developers. And it typically goes from a data side all the way to kind of a visual and governance side. And going all the way back to the data side, a successful Power BI implementation can really not get super high off the ground without a data engineer. Someone who can work with databases, set up a data warehouse where necessary. I'm not talking about an enterprise level data warehouse, just something to host data that is purely meant for reporting. Data engineers are typically the people that can optimize your reporting by generating views inside of databases that eliminate the need for some Power Query that may get out of control in some of your Power BI reporting. Typically, even really skilled data modelers can't slim down their Power Query, and you're going to need someone who can interface with a database or a data warehouse or automation tools to just move data around and get it into places where you're not going to have timing outs of your refreshes. Because the moment your audience starts seeing refresh failures on a daily basis, they're going to start to disengage with the reporting, because it all goes back to reliability. But moving on, data engineers aren't typically always the most logical people as well. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But then you need a data modeler, someone who knows Power BI and how it ticks. Data modeler is kind of different from data engineers, only because they live a little bit outside of the database. They know how Power BI likes to ingest data, how the relationships need to be formed, and typically they're very strong with DAX coding. And this is where the expertise in the subject matter starts to come in, because a data modeler can be the same person as a business analyst, but without a business analyst as well, someone who can ingest your organizational goals and culture and kind of the subject matter in general. Without a business analyst, someone who is really all about the business, what they know what the users want to see, they know what the executives want to see, and they know what people need to see. Without a business analyst, things are kind of going to move a little bit too much to the data and analytical side, where if you want to get a certain insight, you got to click 7 times and go to a drill through and then navigate to a new place. And
or vanity metrics, right?
exactly.
So if you have a business analyst, what you'll hear from like a stakeholder is like, I want to see gross revenues. Cool. Like we can create a card that shows you gross revenues. What does that actually accomplish for you? What are you
Exactly.
trying to get to, right? The business analyst is going to ask those questions.
And the business analyst can really appease the people who are gaining insights and the people who want to see the numbers go up. You know, it's a fine line to watch, but they're going to be looking at the same reports. And without a business analyst to kind of weed through all of the feedback and figure out what's most important, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And finally, on the developer side, you need someone who's just coordinating everything, someone who's going to, govern the entire environment at large, manage permissions, get feedback directly from users, and make it a habit to just deliver those insights to your development team. And it can't be said enough. Sometimes these people exist across different departments. Even business analysts / data modelers can exist within their own department. Data engineers can be in IT or your data warehousing team. And even in smaller organizations, these 4 roles can be spread across 3 people with different combinations therein. It's as long as you have people that are comfortable filling in these roles and aren't just doing it begrudgingly, they're gonna build a successful environment. However, if you have a lack in any of these areas, typically some things are going to fall through the cracks, and you're going to start to have a more disengaged audience, because it really is a programmatic approach. There's never going to be a proper way that this stuff is set up. And if you think you've crossed a finish line, you have to start looking towards the next one. Otherwise, your Power BI implementation is going to get stale. And without the people to empower it, it will definitely get stale.
I would even go further as to say, I think there's one role that we didn't touch on that I personally, and it can be integrated into the business analyst role, but to me, it's UI UX, right, with the reporting, because like I am notorious for creating spreadsheets that only I understand. And when I share them with people, they're like, this is difficult and weird, right? Or I've created some Power BI reports for myself that I'm embarrassed to show y'all that I use kind of internally because they're just ugly. And I know how to get around in them, but there's no way that if I shared them with other people that they would be even useful or engaging, but they give me what I need, right? So I think that that's important if you're going to really create user adoption. People are going to want to interact with the data in a way that like, it's not clunky. It's not weird. It's not, to your point, like we're not doing 13 clicks. So all of it kind of comes together, but there is a way, like there's literally like books written on how to display data and like certain form factors that you will put in place in order to prominently display certain types of data in certain ways on the page in order to make it more aesthetically pleasing and engaging from left to right and all this other stuff. So like, I think it's important to know that comes to part of it, because we're not talking anymore about just the back end part of the data, which is all the really important stuff. It's then when it finally gets presented, how does it feel? How does it look? Does it meet brand standards if it's going to be out on the company intranet, right? On top of, is it easy to read and can I understand it? And does it make sense to me? Is it labeled properly, right? The analyst will work with the UI UX person if they're not the same person to really come together on that, right?